At 1 in the morning, my daughter collapsed on our doorstep, completely shattered. Through her sobs, she told me, "Mom, he called off the wedding for another woman." I silently led her inside. Then I picked up the phone to call my daughter's fiancé, wanting to know why, and the answer I got sent a chill down my spine. I'm glad you're here. If you're watching this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're listening to my revenge story from. I want to know how far it's reached. It was already 1 in the morning, and I was still bustling around the small kitchen of my little corner store. This store is my whole life, ever since my husband left me for another woman, abandoning me with my little Sarah and a mountain of debt. My hands wiped down the worn wooden counter. Every grain of wood seemed etched with the story of my struggles, and all I wanted was to finish up so I could collapse onto the simple cot in the loft apartment upstairs. Outside, a stubborn drizzle was falling, drumming on the tin roof. The only other sound was a dog barking in the distance, a cry as mournful as my own laments. The wall clock had just ticked past 1, the second hand moving with an infuriating slowness. Reminding me that the night was still long, I sighed. Thinking about Sarah, my only daughter, who was now 28 and about to marry Alex Miller, that handsome and talented doctor she was head over heels in love with. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and I had scraped together all my savings to buy her a white silk dress, even if it meant borrowing from the neighbors. It was all dream. After so many years of me breaking my back selling things and her studying to become a nurse to escape poverty. I smiled to myself, imagining she'd stop by to visit me tomorrow, her face lit up, to tell me about the preparations. Suddenly there were knocks on the door, insistent but weak, as if the person on the other side was using their last bit of strength to hold onto something. My heart clenched. Who could be knocking at this hour? I quickly dried my hands on my apron and hurried to the main door of the store, the one I always secured with 2 deadbolts after closing. Through the rain-streaked glass, I made out a hunched figure, trembling under the yellowish glow of the street lamp. I undid the locks, opened the door, and then I froze. There was Sarah, my daughter, her white silk dress all wrinkled and clinging to her body from the rain, her makeup streaked with tears, creating black smudges on her cheeks. She was holding her heels in her hand, and one of them fell with a dull thud on the cracked cement step. Like a bitter joke on a broken dream, her long, black hair, which she always styled so carefully, was now soaked and plastered to her forehead, dripping a mixture of rain and tears onto the floor. "Sarah, honey, what happened to you?" My voice broke, but before I could finish the sentence, she swayed. Her knees buckled right on the step, and her body crumpled like a discarded rag doll. I rushed to her, wrapped my arms around her waist, and pulled her into the house, slamming the door shut to block out the cold and the rain. The water from her soaked hair dripped onto the cold tile floor, forming an uneven puddle. I helped her into an old wooden chair by the dining table, the same one where we had laughed this morning while planning the wedding menu. Her breathing was ragged and shallow, as if every gulp of air was a stab in the chest. I took her hand, that white, delicate hand, which so skillfully gave patients their shots, and it felt as cold as ice, trembling non-stop. "Sweetie, tell me what happened. Why are you like this?" Between choked sobs, as gut-wrenching as knives in my heart, she whispered in a voice so faint I had to lean in to hear her. "Mom, he called off the wedding. He chose Chloe Thompson." Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. My body went rigid, as if I'd been frozen solid in the middle of my cramped kitchen. Chloe Thompson, the daughter of Mr. Stephen Thompson, the pharmaceutical tycoon the whole city feared and respected. I had warned Sarah that Alex, with his handsome face and sweet promises, might not be a good man, but she was blinded by love. And now what? 3 weeks before the wedding, with the dress made, the invitation sent, and he, that bastard, chooses the rich girl. I tried to swallow the rage that threatened to erupt like a wildfire, forcing myself to speak without my voice shaking. "Drink this, sweetie. It's hot tea." I placed a mug of ginger tea in her trembling hands. The rising steam fogged up my glasses. Sarah took the mug, but her hands were so weak she almost dropped it, and I had to help her hold it. Then she told me everything, her voice broken like shattered glass. Alex had called her tonight, right after she'd tried on her wedding dress at the tailor's. His voice was cold, without a single apology, announcing that the wedding in 3 weeks was not going to happen. "I've chosen Chloe," he told her, as if he were talking about the weather. Sarah had collapsed on the floor of the fitting room, still in her white dress, and cried until she had no strength left before calling a cab to come here, in the middle of the rain and the night. "Mom, I thought he loved me." I believed him. Her voice broke completely and I could only hug her tightly, feeling my own heart tear apart. The rage exploded. I snatched the phone from her hand, the iPhone he'd given her for her birthday, now a piece of evidence of his betrayal, and dialed Alex's number with trembling fingers. The phone rang several times, and he finally answered, his voice as calm as if nothing had happened. "Alex, explain yourself, you miserable bastard. How dare you do this to my daughter?" I growled, almost yelling into the phone, forgetting all courtesy. His voice came back, cold and distant, like the clash of two metals. "Mrs. Davis, Sarah isn't on my family's level. I have a better option now. I'm sorry, but it's over." His words were a slap in the face, without a hint of doubt, without a word of comfort. I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white, and I only heard the sharp final click as he hung up. Sarah broke down crying, a gut-wrenching sob like a dam breaking, burying her face in the old couch cushion, the one she'd hugged to sleep since she was a little girl. Her thin shoulders shook uncontrollably, and every sob vibrated through the small room. I looked at my daughter, my soul split in two. The girl I had raised with my own sweat, with sleepless nights selling things in the store, was now shattered by a treacherous man. Silently, I set the tea mug on the table, got up, and drew the thin curtain over the window, blocking the dim light from the street lamp. Then I turned off one of the lights, leaving only the weak yellow glow of the table lamp to envelop the room. The space sank into a soft darkness, but the pain was still there, sharp, piercing every fiber of my being. I sat down next to Sarah, placed a hand on her shoulder and felt her faint warmth through the wool blanket. An invisible weight was crushing my chest, suffocating me so much that I had to take a deep breath to keep from fainting. The next morning, I got up at dawn, as always, my body aching and my mind foggy, as if someone had filled it with wet cotton. I dragged my feet to the kitchen, opened the store, and began mechanically wiping down the shelves. Sarah was still curled up under the blankets in the loft, her eyes swollen and red. She wouldn't eat anything, just lay there like a body without a soul. I brought her a bowl of hot oatmeal I'd quickly made and whispered, "Eat, sweetie, I made it for you." But she just shook her head, her voice hoarse. "I'm not hungry." "Mom," I turned away, swallowing my tears, wondering why God had dragged my daughter through the mud like this. The usual customers started to arrive, just like every morning. A few housewives buying toast, the plumber asking for a black coffee. They chatted and laughed cheerfully, asking, "Hey, Mrs. Davis, isn't Sarah's wedding almost here? What have you got planned? Tell us." Every one of those congratulations was like a small knife twisting in my heart. I felt myself force a smile, trying to make my voice sound happy. "Yes, it's almost here. Everything's going great." I swallowed the pain, biting my lip until it nearly bled, wishing they would leave quickly so I could breathe. A close neighbor, Mrs. Lopez, patted me on the shoulder. "Sarah is so lucky marrying such a handsome doctor. You must be so proud." I nodded, but my heart squeezed shut. Proud? Right now, all I felt was humiliation and hatred. All morning, I wrestled with the idea that I had to do something. I couldn't let Alex and his family get away with this. I decided I had to find some answers. At noon, when the sun was starting to beat down hard, I threw an old shawl over my shoulders, closed the store, and took the number 12 bus to the upscale residential area on the outskirts of town. On the bus, I sat hunched in the back seat, watching out the window as the humble houses gave way to high walls and lush trees. My heart was pounding, a mixture of fear and rage growing inside me. The bus stopped at the last stop. I walked another half-mile under the scorching sun, sweat soaking my back. The residential area appeared like another world. Towering white walls, wrought iron gates gleaming in the sun. I swallowed hard and reached out to ring the doorbell. The sharp sound echoed as if mocking my audacity. The gate creaked open and a middle-aged maid came out to meet me. She looked me up and down with suspicion, from my worn shawl to my mud-stained plastic sandals. "Who are you looking for?" she asked, her voice cold. "I'm looking for Mrs. Miller. It's important," I replied, trying to stay calm even though I felt like my heart was going to beat out of my chest. Reluctantly, she let me in. Her footsteps echoed on the white gravel path, and I followed, dragging my feet. The living room was luxurious. Chloe Thompson was sitting with her legs crossed on a red velvet sofa, her long fingers with bright red nails toying with a shimmering pearl necklace. I felt my heart stop, the blood rush to my head. That was my mother's pearl necklace, the heirloom she had given Sarah before she died, after months in the hospital with cancer. She had taken my daughter's hand and whispered, "Wear this on your wedding day, sweetie, so I can be with you." And now it was here, around this arrogant girl's neck. How do you have this?" I stammered, my voice trembling with rage and pain. Chloe looked up, a provocative half-smile on her face. "Ah, you must be Mrs. Davis. Alex told me about you." "This necklace?" He said it was a gift, and that it looks better on me now. Isn't it pretty?" She signaled for the maid to bring wine, and the sharp scent of French wine hit my nose, making me want to throw up. Before I could answer, my eyes were fixed on the glass coffee table. A stack of wedding invitations was perfectly arranged, on white silk paper with gold lettering. My daughter's invitation was on top of the pile. The names Sarah Davis and Alex Miller mercilessly crossed out with a line of red ink. Beside it, the names Chloe and Alex were written above, arrogantly. My heart twisted. Tears threatened to spill, but I gritted my teeth, thinking of Sarah crying at home. Suddenly, a shrill voice came from the ebony wood spiral staircase. It was Mrs. Teresa Miller, Alex's mother, coming down with a white porcelain cup in her hand. "Oh, Mrs. Davis visiting. We're just choosing what's worthy of our family. Your Sarah, well, she's a nice girl, but she doesn't fit into the Miller lineage. You understand?" Her voice was dripping with contempt, as if she were talking about a cheap object. I didn't get a chance to reply when the front door opened again and the engine of a luxury car roared outside. Alex walked in, impeccable in an expensive Armani suit and a blue silk tie. He shook hands warmly with Mr. Stephen Thompson, Chloe's father. They were laughing and talking business. "Stephen, the pharmaceutical deal with Harrison Industries will bring in millions. If Alex plays his part as medical advisor, well." They completely ignored me, as if I were an invisible ghost in the midst of their opulence. Alex walked past me. His eyes flashed with a flicker of annoyance, and then he let out a cold phrase. "It's useless for you to have come. Everything is decided. Leave and tell your daughter to accept reality." His words slapped me across the face. I clenched my fists until my knuckles turned white, wanting to lunge at him, but I stood still. Swallowing the humiliation, I looked around. The antique paintings on the walls, the gleaming mahogany furniture, Chloe's cloying perfume that overpowered the aroma of Mrs. Miller's coffee. The maid placed a plate of pastries on the table, glancing at me with pity as if to say, "Poor woman," she whispered as she served the tea. "Mrs. Davis, you should go. They're not easy people to talk to." I pressed my lips together tightly and forced myself to stand, trying to keep my back straight even though my knees were shaking. My voice came out, short but firm, like the knife I had sharpened myself. "I will never forget this day. You're going to regret this." Then I turned and walked out, fleeing that hellish gate, while the screech of the iron behind me sounded like mocking laughter. The midday sun hit me right in the eyes, making everything around me seem to burn. Sweat and tears mixed on my cheeks. I took the bus back, sitting hunched in my seat, clutching my shawl, my chest tight with humiliation and pent-up rage. Why was the world so unfair? Were we poor? And was that why we had to bow our heads? When I got home, I opened the store, went up to the loft, and saw Sarah still curled up in a corner of the bed, hugging her white wedding dress tightly. Her tears fell silently, rolling down her cheeks and dripping onto the fabric, staining it. "I'm back. Did something happen, Mom?" she asked, her voice weak. I stood in the doorway, my fists clenched in pain, unable to say a word. The next morning, I woke Sarah up very early, my voice soft but firm. "Sweetie, get up, we're going to the hospital. Work will help you forget, at least for a little while." She opened her eyes, still red and swollen, but nodded weakly as if clinging to one last hope. I watched her put on her light blue nurse's uniform, tie her hair back in a neat ponytail, and try to smile in the mirror. "I'm going with you today," I said, stroking her cheek. We took the number 7 bus, sitting close together, holding hands. The morning breeze carried a faint scent of flowers, but it couldn't lift the weight I felt in my chest. The hospital appeared with its white hallways and a strong smell of disinfectant that stung the nose, mixed with the sound of wheelchairs and patients' whispers. I hoped this place would welcome her, that it would soothe her broken heart. But right at the reception, her department head, Mr. Ramirez, a strict old man with thick glasses, stopped Sarah. He handed her a folded notice, white paper with thick black letters, a transfer order to the night shift starting next week. "Miss Davis, it's a decision from above. It's not up for discussion." His voice was sharp and he didn't even look her in the eye. Sarah stood frozen, the paper trembling in her hands, her face as pale as the notice. "But why? I've been on the day shift for 3 years. I've never had a complaint. What's the reason?" she asked, stammering, trying to stay calm, but I saw that tears were about to well up. Mr. Ramirez shook his head, his voice dry. "It's a decision from above. Accept it and don't ask any more questions." His words were another slap, without an explanation, without a shred of compassion. I was beside her, my heart pounding, rage building. This wasn't a random decision, I was sure of it. Alex had pulled some strings. He was a doctor in that department. He could whisper a few venomous words to his boss. Not far from there, the door to the conference room opened and Alex came out, still in his pristine white coat and perfectly knotted blue tie, holding a file. He shot my daughter an icy glare and then turned away as if nothing had happened, talking and laughing with a young nurse. "We have a lot of surgeries today. We need to get ready." As if Sarah didn't exist, as if he had never promised her a life by his side. Sarah crumpled the paper in her fist, her shoulders shaking. I hugged her and whispered, "Let's go, sweetie, I'm here." On the way home, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was an email from the bank. She opened it with pale hands. The joint account she had with him had been frozen. The balance was 0, and a notice read, "All transactions have been cancelled at the request of the primary account holder. All the wedding expenses, from the Vera Wang dress ordered from New York to the contract with a fancy downtown restaurant. The flowers and the photographer were in her name." "Mom, he froze everything. How am I going to pay? I borrowed money from my friends." Her voice broke. Tears rolled down her cheeks, dripping onto the phone screen. I hugged her tightly, feeling helpless, as if someone was strangling me. How could he be so cruel? He not only stole her dreams, but he buried her in debt, leaving her to drown in humiliation. When the bus stopped in our neighborhood, we walked quickly toward the small apartment Sarah had rented 2 years ago, hoping to start her married life there. But from a distance, I noticed something strange. A moving crew was carrying cardboard boxes down the stairs to an old truck. The lock on the door had been changed. The new one gleamed under the sun like a sentence. Sarah ran over, her voice broken. "What's going on? This is my home." The building manager, a fat man with a mustache, approached, his tone apologetic but firm. "I'm sorry, Miss Davis. The lease was only in Dr. Miller's name. He notified us of the termination this morning and asked that your things be removed. You no longer have the right to stay here. These are your belongings. We left them in the hallway." He pointed to a messy pile of plastic bags, some wrinkled clothes, her nursing notebook, and the old teddy bear I gave her for her 18th birthday. Sarah stood trembling in the middle of the dark hallway, clutching the few things that had been thrown out. She squeezed the teddy bear so tightly she nearly crushed it, as tears streamed down her face. How could he? This was my home. Our home, she whispered, her voice shattered. I ran and hugged her, shielding her from the curious stares of neighbors peeking out of their doors. Let's go, sweetie, come with me, I said with a choked voice. And I pulled her towards the moving truck, leaving her things behind as if we were leaving a broken piece of her life. We returned to the small corner store and our cramped two-room loft, where the smell of dry goods and the noise of trucks were our daily companions. Sarah collapsed on the bed, hugging her knees, while I tidied up a bit, trying to act like everything was normal, but my heart was bleeding. A few days later, the house phone rang suddenly in the middle of a sweltering afternoon. I saw the screen, an unknown number, but a bad feeling washed over me like a wave. I answered, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. Hello? On the other end, Alex's voice sounded light and fake, as if he were granting a favor from on high. Mrs. Davis? It's Alex. I've recommended Sarah for a special patient, Mr. James Harrison. He needs a private nurse. If she still wants to save her career, she should go try her luck. It's her last chance. His words were sweet as poison. I pictured his twisted smile as if he were tossing us a breadcrumb. Fury rose inside me, but I held it back, swallowing the bitter taste in my mouth. I replied curtly, I'll tell her, and I hung up. The dial tone sounded flat, like a curse. My heart was pounding. I sank into the old wooden chair. I knew of James Harrison, the biotech tycoon, paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident 2 years ago. Famous for being a tyrant who fired nurses as if he were changing shirts. No one lasted more than a week with him. Alex was recommending her? There had to be something shady about it. Alex never did anything without getting something in return. I went up to the loft and found Sarah sitting by the window, fiddling with her nursing notebook, her gaze lost on the bustling street below. Sweetie, Alex called, I said with a shaky voice, sitting beside her and taking her icy hand. She turned sharply, her eyes wide with surprise and fear. Him? Why did he call? I told her everything. Every word of his was like a stab. Sarah was stunned, her face pale, and then she hesitated, biting her lip until it turned white. Mr. Harrison? Mom, I've heard he's terrible. All the nurses run away, he yells. He's demanding. Why would he recommend me? Do you think he wants to get revenge? I squeezed her hand tightly, determined, though my own heart was a mess. Even if this is a trap, if you can get through it, you'll show everyone what you're made of. Not for him, but for yourself. I know you're stronger than he thinks. Sarah nodded slowly, her eyes filled with tears, and then she stood up, quickly wiping her cheeks. I'll try. I can't stay here forever letting him think I'm weak. She packed her clothes in an old suitcase, the leather cracked from her student days. She carefully folded her light blue nurse's uniform, her notebook, some underwear, and a pair of comfortable shoes. I helped her, my hands shaking as I packed each item, whispering words of encouragement. Remember to stay calm, honey. He's a difficult man, but you have a heart of gold. I'll call you every day. Sarah hugged me tightly, her voice choked. Thanks, Mom. Without you, I don't know what I'd do. That afternoon, I walked her to the bus stop. Sarah clutched her suitcase, her shoulders slightly hunched under the sun, while I, standing on the dusty curb, waved goodbye through the car exhaust. She sat by the window, her face pressed against the glass, looking at me longingly, mouthing the words, "Take care." Mom! The bus pulled away, merging into the heavy traffic, and I followed it with my eyes until it disappeared around the corner, leaving me with an emptiness in my soul, as if something had been torn out of me. When I got back, the store felt strangely quiet. I sat behind the counter, fiddling with my shawl, praying silently. Dear God, please, don't let my daughter suffer anymore. That evening, as the sun set, painting the rooftops red, the phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice sounded tired, but she was trying to stay calm. "Mom, I'm here. The Harrison mansion. It's huge, like a palace." She told me a very serious butler, a tall old man with a silver mustache, had let her through a heavy iron gate. The house was imposing with pristine white walls, floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the setting sun, and a perfectly manicured garden with blooming rose bushes and a whispering fountain. They took me to the living room. The furniture was incredibly luxurious. Then James Harrison appeared in his electric wheelchair, gliding silently through the doorway. His face was tense with deep wrinkles, and his sharp gaze scanned her from head to toe like a razor. He looked to be about 50 with salt and pepper hair and an impeccable gray suit despite being in the chair. His voice was deep and harsh. "Miss Davis, sit down. Have you cared for paralyzed patients before? Do you know how many nurses I've fired already? They're clumsy, impatient, and I can't stand pity." Although Sarah was trembling, she tried to answer clearly. Her voice over the phone sounded a little shaky. "Yes, sir. I've handled a few cases of paralysis at the hospital. I know how to give massages and monitor blood pressure. I'll do my best." The butler and the personal physician, a thin doctor with round glasses, stood to the side, not hiding their skepticism, whispering to each other and looking at Sarah as if they were evaluating a low-quality product. James nodded curtly. "You have 1 week. If you last, fine. If not, get out." Before hanging up, my daughter said in a low voice, almost a whisper, "Mom, I'm going to try, but I think this is the hardest challenge of my life. He's very cold, but I don't want to give up." The call ended, leaving me motionless, the phone in my hand, feeling an icy chill despite the sweltering heat. Outside, in the yard, the night wind blew through the bougainvillea vine next to the wall. Its delicate pink petals fell onto the damp earth, swirling in the air like my own worries. This was the beginning of a stormy journey. I knew it. But it was also a chance for Sarah to find herself again, for me to see her rise from the ashes. That's what being a mother is, suffering every second, but never losing hope, never stopping believing. The first night Sarah worked, I couldn't sleep, lying on my simple cot, my eyes fixed on the water-stained ceiling, clutching my old cell phone like it was a good luck charm. The little store was silent after closing. The only sounds were the ticking of the clock and the distant roar of a semi-truck on the highway. But my heart was in chaos, as if someone were shaking it non-stop. Every little noise, the scratch of a stray cat at the back door, the whistle of the wind through a crack made me jump, imagining Sarah crying alone in that strange room. "Honey, I'm so worried about you," I whispered into the darkness, as tears rolled down onto my pillow, remembering how she'd gotten on the bus with her suitcase, her eyes red but forcing a smile. That's what being a mother is, suffering every second, hanging by a thin thread, just wishing your daughter makes it through her first night in that den of wolves. Around 11 at night, when exhaustion was finally winning, the phone vibrated on my chest. An unknown number appeared on the blurry screen. My heart skipped a beat and I answered quickly. "Hello? Sarah?" My daughter's voice came through, exhausted but trying to sound strong. "Mom, it's me!" The first day was exhausting, but I'm okay. I let out a sigh of relief, sat up, and asked with a trembling voice, "Tell me, sweetie, how did it go? Did he give you a hard time?" Sarah started to tell me, in a low voice, as if she were afraid someone might hear, starting with the morning. The housekeeper, a thin, middle-aged woman with the face of a nun, had given her a tour of the enormous mansion, from the marble hallways to the empty guest rooms, repeating in her shrill voice, "Mr. Harrison is extremely bothered by noise, Miss Davis. Don't walk heavily. Don't speak loudly, and for heaven's sake, don't drop anything. He can hear you from far away." Sarah told me she nodded to everything, but inside she was a nervous wreck. The mansion felt like a labyrinth, with gleaming bronze statues and towering shelves full of medical books in English, which made her feel tiny, lost like a grain of sand in the desert. At noon, Sarah served lunch in the immense dining room with a long, gleaming wooden table that could seat 20 people, but only James was sitting in his wheelchair at the head. She told me he ate every spoonful of chicken soup in silence with his left hand, his face as cold as stone without saying a word, the only sound the clinking of the spoon against the porcelain. Sarah tried to break the ice. "Mr. Harrison, the soup today has fresh vegetables from the garden, right? It's delicious." But he didn't answer, just shot her a sideways glance, as sharp as a knife, that made her fall silent immediately, and her hands trembled as she served the salad. Then the accident happened. A silver fork slipped from her hand, clattering onto the marble floor with a metallic clang that echoed through the room like a funeral bell. James slammed his left hand on the table, a sharp thud that made Sarah jump. "I hate clumsiness. Do you think I need a useless person like you? Pick it up and be more careful next time." My daughter could only lower her head, her cheeks burning with shame, and apologize in a low voice. "Yes, sir, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful." Her voice trembled over the phone as she told me, and I felt a knot in my stomach, wanting to run and hug her and scream at that man, "Don't you mistreat my daughter, you bitter old man!" The afternoon was even worse, Sarah told me. He made her read a very long medical report on neural therapy, full of small print and charts, while he sat in his wheelchair by the window, looking out at the garden. His voice was sharp without warmth. "Read slowly, Miss Davis. I want to test your patience. If you mispronounce one word, you start over." Sarah tried, her voice growing tired with each page, but on the third, she stumbled over the word synapse and pronounced it synapse. He let out a mocking laugh. "Useless. Read it again. Do you think a nurse who can't pronounce words correctly can heal anyone?" My daughter gritted her teeth and kept reading, her eyes sore with fatigue, but not daring to complain. In the middle of the night, when the mansion was dark, she took the chance to call me from a dark hallway, her voice so exhausted it was barely audible. "Mom, it's harder than I imagined. I don't know how long I can last. Every word he says is like a slap." My heart broke. Tears rolled down my cheeks. "My love, I know you're strong. Just hang in there a little longer and you'll show them what you're made of." "I'm so proud of you." I hadn't even finished comforting her when, on the other end, the housekeeper's shrill voice cut in, "Miss Davis, it's time for Mr. Harrison's medicine." "Hurry up," Sarah quickly whispered. "I have to go, Mom. I love you." And the call cut off, leaving me alone with my worry. The following days, I lived on pins and needles, tending to the store, but with my mind on my daughter. Customers would ask me things, and I would just half smile, praying to God for her. A couple of days later, close to midnight, as I was making myself some ginger tea to calm my nerves, the phone rang again. This time, Sarah's voice was rushed, whispering as if she were afraid of being overheard. "Mom, I saw something really strange." "Don't tell anyone." My heart started pounding and I sat up straight. "Tell me, sweetie." Slowly. She said that when she went into the hallway to get water from the cooler, because he made her drink at exact times, she saw a sliver of light coming from under the door of the physical therapy room, a heavy oak door that was always locked. Curiosity got the better of her, and even though she knew she shouldn't, she crept closer, pressed her eye to the crack, and held her breath at the incredible sight. James Harrison was standing gripping a metal bar on the wall tightly. He had gotten up from the wheelchair that was in the corner. Sweat soaked his white shirt, dripping onto the gleaming wooden floor. His legs were shaking violently, but it was clear they were supporting his full weight, every muscle contracting with effort. Beside him, a physical therapist, a middle-aged man in workout clothes, his face red with strain, was counting in a low voice. 1, 2, hold it, Mr. Harrison, you can do it. 3, 4. He encouraged him, supporting his back. Just a few more steps, sir. You're on the verge of a breakthrough. Sarah told me she was petrified outside, covering her mouth to keep from screaming, her heart hammering like a drum. Mom, he can walk. At least a few steps. His legs are weak, they shake a lot, but he can stand. Why is he hiding it from everyone? Is he pretending to be this bad for what? I'm so scared, Mom. Her voice was full of confusion, a mix of excitement and panic, as if she had just uncovered a massive secret I listened in silence, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling like I couldn't breathe. Outside, the chirping of crickets filled the warm night, and the smell of damp earth after the rain drifted in through the open window, bringing a cool breeze. I knew in that moment that this was the key that could change everything. Not just for James, but for Sarah and me too. A few days later, when Sarah's nightly calls had become a routine filled with exhaustion and whispered secrets, James had a checkup at the city's largest hospital, that imposing white building downtown, where ambulance sirens wailed day and night. I didn't feel right leaving my daughter alone with him, so when Sarah called me early, her voice trembling with nerves, "Mom, Mr. Harrison has his checkup today, and I'm going with him. Can you come?" I'm scared. I immediately closed the store, took the number 5 bus, and sat hunched in the back seat with my old cloth bag, where I had a piece of bread and a bottle of water. On the way, I watched the familiar streets pass by the window like an old movie, feeling a mix of worry and hope. James's secret kept me up at night, thinking that maybe this was our way out. But hospitals are always full of schemes, like when I saw my ex-husband die there because we didn't have money for medicine. When I arrived, the hospital was gleaming under the midday sun. The air was thick with the smell of disinfectant, sweat, and coffee from the cafeteria, which made me cough a little. Doctors and nurses hurried by, their white coats flapping, the sound of their rubber-soled shoes squeaking on the shiny floor, mixed with the cries of children and the groans from the emergency room. Sarah met me at the entrance, her face pale but forcing a smile. "I'm so glad you came." "Mom, Mr. Harrison is in the waiting room. I'm worried he'll get moody." We pushed James's wheelchair towards the elevator. He sat in silence, his gaze fixed ahead without a greeting, just giving me a curt nod as if I were just another employee. I waited in the reception area, on one of those hard plastic chairs, fiddling with the edge of my bag, never taking my eyes off my daughter as she pushed the wheelchair towards the doctor's office. I felt a weight on my chest, praying silently, "Dear God, please watch over my daughter. Don't let the ghosts of the past come back." Suddenly, just as James's wheelchair was entering the office, a gust of air brought with it a strong, expensive perfume. Mr. Stephen Thompson appeared out of nowhere. He looked to be in his 60s, wearing an elegant custom-made black suit and a silk tie as red as blood. Behind him was a team of lawyers, all in identical black suits and faces as cold as puppets. Beside him walked Chloe, stunning in a tight red dress, her lips painted a deep red, and an arrogant look that scanned the people as if she were a queen. Alex was at the end in his pristine white coat, holding a thick file tied with a rubber band, his face as calm as ever. My heart seized, the blood rushed to my head. I squeezed Sarah's hand, who was sitting next to me. "Sweetie, what are they doing here?" She turned pale and whispered, "Mom, it must be about Mr. Harrison. I'm so scared." The group walked past us as if we were invisible, the sound of their leather shoes echoing on the floor, without even a glance in our direction, as if we were trash in their path. They went straight to the department head's office. Dr. Alvarez, a bald old man with a graying beard, just a few doors down from James's. The door was left ajar in their haste. I clearly heard Alex's voice from inside, as smooth and confident as if he were giving a speech. "Mr. Harrison's condition is irreversible. This is the final medical diagnosis based on the latest studies. He needs to rest. He shouldn't be involved in business anymore." His words were like a stab. Sarah squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Her whole body was shaking and her face was as white as a prescription slip. "Mom, he's lying. I know he can walk," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears. I made her sit on the cold plastic bench in the hallway, rubbing her back, trying to control the rage that was boiling in my chest like a pressure cooker about to explode. "Calm down, sweetie, I'm here. We're not going to let them win." But inside, I was consumed by hatred. Alex, that bastard, had not only betrayed my daughter, but he was also selling out his patient, all for money and power. I moved closer to the ajar door, my heart pounding like a drum, and saw Chloe hand the file to the hospital director, a middle-aged woman with a serious face and gold-rimmed glasses, with a feline, calculating smile. They were all forged lab results. I could see crossed out numbers and altered graphs. But everything had bright red seals and signatures that looked real. Mr. Thompson smiled coldly, sitting with his arms crossed in a leather chair, his voice a mix of mockery and threat. It's about time Thompson Pharmaceuticals took over this neural recovery technology. Mr. Harrison should be spending his time resting instead of obstructing progress. We'll take care of the rest. Dr. Alvarez nodded, hesitating. But, are you sure about these results? We need to confirm them. Chloe let out a little laugh, her voice sweet as honey. Of course, doctor. Alex is the expert. He guarantees it. A couple of young nurses walked by, whispering to each other and looking with pity toward James's office. Poor Mr. Harrison. So paralyzed, he'll probably have to sell his company. It was obvious they had bought Alex's lies. Wrapped up in his white coat, one of the Thompsons' lawyers, a tall guy with black-rimmed glasses, leaned in and whispered to Alex, but loud enough for me to hear. After the deal is closed, the seat on the medical board is yours. Thompson Pharmaceuticals will pay you very well. Alex just gave a slight nod, a vacant look in his eyes and a satisfied smile, as if he were counting money in his head. I just sat there, my heart heavy, breathing so fast I started to feel dizzy. My hands were freezing despite the heat in the hallway. Sarah buried her head in my shoulder, sobbing quietly. Mom, he betrayed everyone. Not just me. He sold out Mr. Harrison for the Thompsons' money. How could he? Her tears soaked my shoulder. I hugged her tightly, feeling helpless, like a giant wave was pulling me under. The man I once considered my son-in-law was now a traitor, trampling on his medical oath to climb the corporate ladder. On a nearby table, a nurse's cup of coffee was still steaming. The bitter smell mixed in the air, overpowering even the expensive perfume Chloe left in her wake. That scent that reminded me of the afternoons he used to come to my house, pretending to be in love. When the Thompson group left, the sound of their shoes faded, but Chloe's arrogant laugh still echoed in the hallway, sharp as a knife. Dad, everything went perfectly! Harrison will be a thing of the past. They disappeared around the corner. Leaving my daughter and me in a dead silence, I stood up, wiped my tears and put my hand on her shoulder. My voice was low but firm, like an oath. We're going to bring the truth to light, sweetie. I promise you, Mr. Harrison's secret, these fake files, we'll use them to destroy them. Sarah looked up, her eyes red but with a spark of determination. Mom, I'll help you. For me, for him, and for people like us. One Saturday morning, as the first rays of sun filtered through the rotting wooden window, drawing yellow patches on the cracked tile floor, I decided to clean the small room Sarah had used to get ready for her wedding. I wiped the dust from the vanity, my trembling fingers brushing against an old lipstick. Then, as I opened the bottom drawer, my hand bumped into an old box. The cardboard yellowed with age, hidden among crumpled papers and some faded family photos. I pulled it out, my heart pounding, a mix of curiosity and fear. It was the box where Sarah kept her things from when she was with Alex. And in the middle of the papers, I saw it, a black cell phone, an old model, the case scratched like scars and a small crack in one corner of the screen. It was Alice's. I recognized it immediately. He had forgotten it once when he came to the house a long time ago, when he was still pretending to be the perfect son-in-law, eating the tacos I made for him and saying with a sweet smile, Mrs. Davis, you cook better than a 5-star restaurant. I picked up the phone, my fingers trembling. I wondered why Sarah had kept it. I felt a knot in my stomach, but rage gave me strength. I plugged it into the old wall socket. The worn cord made a little crackle. The screen suddenly lit up. It still had more than half its battery. Even without a SIM card, it had saved some messages and half-written emails like forgotten confessions. I held my breath and sat on the bed, clutching the phone with my heart about to burst. The first messages were silly. Selfies of him at the hospital, goodnight texts to Sarah. But I kept scrolling and I felt my blood run cold. A series of messages sent to someone named C. Thompson, which had to be Chloe. When she gets fired from the hospital, no one will ever believe in her abilities again. She'll cry and beg, but it'll be too late. See you tonight, my love." His words were cold, calculating, as if he were planning a murder. I read it over and over, tears streaming down my cheeks, a bitter taste rising in my throat. He hadn't just abandoned my daughter, he had planned to destroy her career, sending her to the hellish night shift just so she would know her place. Then, another email addressed to Mr. Thompson, half written but crystal clear. "After we take full control of Harrison Industries, my position at Thompson Pharmaceuticals must be secured, as you promised, right? I'll handle the medical side, forging files if necessary. Chloe and I will be the perfect couple for the company's image." That email was like a lightning bolt, confirming all my suspicions. He had sold out James. He had betrayed his medical oath, all for money and status, dragging Chloe and her father into his ambition. I sat frozen in the middle of the messy room, my heart pounding so hard my chest hurt, breathing raggedly as if I'd run a marathon. An immense pain washed over me, mixed with a burning fury. How could he? He had sat here, had hugged Sarah, had promised to take care of her for the rest of her life, and now he was writing these venomous words? I thought of my daughter, of the nights she cried over him until her pillow was soaked, and I felt my heart bleed, as if someone were ripping it out. But then through the tears, a spark of determination ignited. This was the proof, the weapon to fight back. Quickly, I pulled the small notebook from my apron, the one I used to keep track of what customers owed me, and carefully copied every word, my handwriting shaky but clear. Dates, content of the messages, emails. I even took pictures of the screen with the old camera from the store. Every letter was like a curse. I whispered to myself, "He's going to pay for this, for my daughter, for everything." That afternoon, as the sun began to set, painting the dusty street red, Sarah came to visit from the Harrison mansion. She walked into the store in her wrinkled nurse's uniform, her face tired but her eyes brighter than they had been in days. "Mom, they gave me the afternoon off. Mr. Harrison isn't so irritable anymore, I'll tell you." She smiled faintly and sat in a chair behind the counter, taking the glass of lemonade I quickly made for her. I didn't say anything, just pulled the phone from my pocket and placed it on the table in front of her, the screen still lit up with those deadly words. Sarah picked it up, first with curiosity, and then her face went pale. Her trembling hands swiped across the screen. What is this?" "His phone." "Where did you find it, Mom?" Her voice broke, and when she finished reading, her eyes turned red, shining with an immense fury mixed with unbearable pain. The tears rolled down uncontrollably. How? How could he write that about me? No one will ever believe in her abilities again. How long had he been planning to get me fired? And with Chloe's dad to take over Harrison's company? "Mom, he's a monster!" she cried, her voice broken, slamming the phone on the table, her shoulders shaking like a leaf in a storm. I rushed to hug her, my own tears starting to fall, feeling as if our hearts were breaking at the same time. "I found it in your room while I was cleaning." "Sweetie, forgive me, I didn't know how to protect you better." Sarah buried her face in my shoulder, sobbing. "Don't apologize, Mom. I was the one who was blind. I thought he loved me, but now—" I hate him. I hate him so much I want to scream it to the whole world. We held each other, crying, our sobs mixing with the noise of the trucks on the street. And in that moment, the pain wasn't just for the loss, but for the betrayal of the person we had trusted most. I stroked her hair and whispered, "But now we have proof, sweetie. He dug his own grave." I drew the thin curtain over the window, blocking the evening light. I peeked through a crack. Mrs. Lopez, the neighbor, was hanging laundry on a bamboo clothesline, laughing with the kids playing under the eaves. "Run, don't let her catch you." I could hear her laugh. Life went on, cars passed, the fruit seller shouted, "Mangoes, sweet mangoes!" No one knew that a terrible secret had just been discovered in this little house, a conspiracy of ambition that could bring down an empire. I sat back down next to Sarah. My voice was calm, though inside I was a nervous wreck. "We have to be very careful, sweetie. Don't tell anyone, not even Mr. Harrison for now. This is just the beginning. We'll use this to unmask them, but we have to be smart. Like mice in the den of the rich. Sarah wiped her tears and nodded firmly. I understand. Mom, I won't let them win. For you, for me, and for people like us, who they step on but can't knock down. Her words comforted me. But worry gnawed at me. If he found out, what would he do? That night, when the sun had completely set, leaving the street all bathed in the yellow light of the street lamps, I hid the phone at the bottom of a kitchen drawer, where I kept old spice jars and chipped silverware. I locked it with an old rusty padlock and hung the key on a small chain around my neck like a charm, my hands trembling with the fear that someone might find it. Outside, the tamale vendor called out in the cool night air, his hoarse voice echoing, "Hot tamales, chicken pepper!" His voice seemed to announce the long, agonizing road ahead of us. We were now hunters of justice in a world of wolves in sheep's clothing. A week later, Sarah called me from the Harrison mansion, her voice excited and nervous. "Mom, the Thompson Group has called an emergency shareholders meeting at the Harrison Industries offices. Mr. Harrison says I have to go, and he wants you to go too. This is it, Mom." Her voice was trembling, but her eyes were sparkling. After so many days of fearfully gathering evidence, we were going to face the wolves head on. My heart clenched. Sitting behind the counter, my calloused hands still smelling of flour, I looked at my daughter, feeling a mix of fear and pride. "Sweetie, I'm so scared, but for you, I'll go. We're not running anymore." Sarah hugged me tightly and whispered, "Thanks, Mom. Today we're going to get everything back." We got ready quickly. I put on the only decent black dress I owned, and she straightened her nurse's uniform, holding the thin file as if it were a bomb. My daughter and I took the bus downtown, sitting close together, holding hands. I prayed silently, "Dear God, give us strength. Don't let this pain be for nothing." The Harrison Industries tower appeared, imposing in the city center, a giant of glass and steel that reflected the sun like a razor, with its 30 floors and the company logo shining at the top. Outside, luxury cars were parked in a line. Black Mercedes, gray BMW's chauffeurs in white uniforms waited, and a swarm of reporters pushed and shoved with their cameras, shouting, "Mr. Thompson, a comment on the deal." The atmosphere was tense. The smell of car exhaust and expensive perfume made me dizzy. But Sarah squeezed my hand harder. "Don't be afraid. Mom, we have the truth." A security guard checked our invitation and led us through an immense marble lobby, with abstract statues and LED screens displaying business figures. Inside, the Harrison employees seemed confused, whispering with pale faces. "This deal is so strange. Where is Mr. James?" Still, they took us to the guest area, a corner with soft leather armchairs where I sat hunched. My heart racing, thinking of the nights my daughter cried over Alex. And now we were about to confront him. We were taken up in a glass elevator to the top floor, to a huge boardroom with a long, gleaming wooden table and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city. In the room, the air was heavy like before a storm. Mr. Stephen Thompson and his team of black-suited lawyers were already seated at the head of the table. His face was cold in his gray suit, and he looked at us as if we were insects. Chloe was stunning in a white sequined dress, her hair up in an elegant bun, a mocking smile on her red lips when she saw Sarah. "Well, Miss Davis, taking care of patients now? Good luck." Her words were a slap, but Sarah just nodded coldly. Alex was beside her, adjusting his white coat, a thick file in his hand. He looked at my daughter with a twisted smile. "Are you okay? How's the new job?" His voice was sickeningly sweet, which made Sarah's heart ache, but she replied curtly, "Better than you think." The board of directors, a dozen rich old men in gray suits and serious faces, sat on either side of the table whispering among themselves. Mr. Thompson stood up, his voice deep and authoritative. "Ladies and gentlemen, today we present a power of attorney from Mr. James Harrison, authorizing Thompson Pharmaceuticals to acquire the neural recovery technology from Harrison Industries. This is a great step for medicine in this country." They presented the document with James's forged signature, printed on high-quality paper with a bright red seal. Alex read each clause aloud. "Mr. Harrison, due to his health condition, cedes full control to Thompson Pharmaceuticals for the sum of $50 million. At first, the board seemed to believe it, some of them nodding. An old man with a gray beard said, 'Good. Thompson is a reliable partner.' I was sitting with Sarah in a corner, squeezing her hand so tightly my knuckles turned white, listening to Alex's every word. Each one was like a knife twisting in my heart. His voice was smooth, confident, as if he were telling a fairy tale, but I knew it was a lie, a conspiracy to steal. The pain washed over me, tears threatening to spill, for my daughter, for James, for people like us who were trampled on. But I bit my lip and whispered to Sarah, "Stay calm, sweetie, the time has come." Suddenly, the boardroom door flew open with a loud crack. The air seemed to freeze. James Harrison appeared in the doorway without a wheelchair, leaning on a gleaming ebony cane. He walked in slowly, each firm, deliberate step echoing on the marble floor. He wore an impeccable gray suit. His face was serious, but his eyes were blazing, and beads of sweat dotted his forehead from the effort. The entire room fell silent. The whispers ceased. The only sound was the tapping of his cane, each tap like a judgment. I saw Chloe's face turn as white as paper, her trembling hands gripping the edge of the table. Alex went pale and stammered, "Sir, Mr. Harrison, how can you walk?" Mr. Thompson jumped to his feet, his face red with fury. "What is this farce?" "You're paralyzed." James stopped in the middle of the room, leaning on his cane, and his voice, firm and powerful, boomed. "If I were permanently paralyzed, how do you explain me standing here? Do you think you can steal my company with forged documents?" The room erupted. The board was in an uproar and I couldn't hold back. I stood up and walked over with the copies of the forged signatures I had marked in red in my hand. My voice trembled, but it was resolute. "Ladies and gentlemen, here is the proof. Mr. Harrison's signature always has a distinctive hook on the H, but it's missing from this document. It's a forgery." I spread them on the table, pointing out every detail. My heart was pounding, but rage empowered me. Then, I took out my small recorder and played the conversation between Chloe and Alex at the hospital. His voice filled the room. "No one would dare to doubt the Thompsons." The room exploded with murmurs. "Fraud! Stop them!" Sarah stood beside me, looking directly at Alex, her voice clear and firm, no longer trembling. "You didn't just betray me, you betrayed your oath as a doctor. You sold out your patient for money. You're scum." Her words were like daggers. Alex hung his head, stammering, You're confused." When the tension was at its peak, the door opened again. Attorney Frances Cruz walked in, a woman in her 50s, in an impeccable black suit, and her hair pulled back. She carried a file as thick as a Bible. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice as clear as a prosecutor's, "I represent Harrison Industries. Here is all the evidence. Copies of the emails from Dr. Miller's phone, where he admits to the conspiracy, the recording from the hospital, and the private detective's documents, with photos of the secret meetings and the forged contracts." She presented each piece of evidence, fitting it all together perfectly, projecting it onto a large screen. The message about when she gets fired from the hospital is the photo of Alex hugging Chloe at the bar, the signature without the hook. The room filled with murmurs. Board members slammed the table, demanding an explanation. The old man with the beard shouted, "This is a crime! Call the police!" Alex couldn't speak. His face was gray, his hands were shaking. Chloe grabbed her crocodile skin purse and ran for the door, her heels clacking. "Dad, let's go!" Mr. Thompson slammed the table, furious. "This is slander! We have rights." But he couldn't deny it. The evidence was too clear. The board turned on him. "You deceived us." The reporters' cameras outside, through the large window, captured the moment James stood tall. He held up the file, and his voice boomed. "Harrison Industries will never fall into the hands of swindlers. We will continue our mission for patients like me. Thunderous applause filled the room, drowning out the humiliation of the Thompson family, who slipped out the door under a hail of camera flashes and shouts. "Fraud! Give back the company." I stood there hugging Sarah, tears rolling down my cheeks, not of sadness but of relief. The pain of so many days vanished, replaced by the joy of victory. For my daughter, for James, for ordinary people like us. A few weeks after that decisive day, newspapers across the country published the story. Sitting behind the counter of my little store, I read the City Chronicle with its bold headlines. Thompson Group under investigation for commercial fraud and forgery of medical documents. Police have detained key witnesses, and evidence from Harrison Industries shakes the business world. Alex had his medical license permanently revoked. That bastard was now in an interrogation room, his face gray under a bright light, no longer with his white coat to hide his lies. Chloe disappeared from the high society scene. There were no more pictures of her on Instagram with a champagne flute, only rumors of a hurried flight to the United States, leaving behind her jewelry and her dream of owning everything. And Mr. Thompson remained completely silent. The pharmaceutical tycoon was now holed up in his mansion, surrounded by lawyers like guard dogs awaiting the court's verdict. I read it all and felt a bitter satisfaction, tears rolling down my cheeks, not of joy, but thinking of Sarah, of the nights she cried herself to sleep. And now justice had arrived, late but certain. On a sunny day, we stood in front of a new, gleaming building on the outskirts of the city, with a bright sign that read, Harrison Davis Rehabilitation Center. The building was white, with large windows that let in the breeze, and a small garden with stone benches and a gravel path, where future patients would take their first steps. James had insisted on putting the Davis name on it to honor Sarah, and me, the ordinary mother who had helped him get back on his feet. As he said when he signed the papers, "Mrs. Davis, you not only saved my company, but you also saved my soul. Your name will be here forever." I felt a warmth in my chest. I hugged Sarah, who was wearing a simple white dress, her hair down, smiling radiantly. "Mom, I can't believe it. This was my dream and now it's real." The opening ceremony was simple but very warm, nothing like the Thompsons' events. There was just an outdoor table with fresh tacos and lemonade and the soft music of a small mariachi band. Patients and their families gathered, elderly people with legs paralyzed from accidents, children with cerebral palsy and bright eyes, all with faces full of hope. James, Sarah, and I cut the red ribbon together. My hands trembled as I held the silver scissors James gave me, my heart pounding with emotion. "Together," James said, his voice deep and warm, without the old grumpiness. He leaned on his cane, but he stood firm. The sound of the scissors snipping the fabric was crisp. The ribbon fell, and confetti cannons exploded, filling the air with colorful paper like pink snow. The children shouted with joy, "Yay! It started!" They ran to pick up the confetti from the ground, their laughter drowning out the music, a young patient. Little Mikey, 8 years old, with legs paralyzed by polio, came onto the stage with his mother's help. He wore a pristine white shirt, his face red with shyness. Thanks to the center's new technology, the neural therapy that James had so perseveringly developed, the boy took his first wobbly steps holding onto a walker, his legs shaking but moving with determination. "Mom, I'm walking!" The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. I saw tears rolling down the cheeks of the other mothers beside me. I looked at Sarah, who was smiling under the sun, her face no longer holding the sadness and despair of that day. She cried, clutching her wedding dress. Now her smile was genuine, her eyes shining with pride as she spoke to a patient. "I'll help you walk. Don't you worry." My heart filled with joy, tears of happiness rolled down my cheeks. My daughter from the ashes of betrayal had been reborn as a strong woman. James placed a hand on her shoulder, a rare, warm smile appearing on his face, now with fewer wrinkles. "Thank you, Sarah. Without you, I'd still be in a wheelchair." She blushed and replied, "You're the inspiration, sir. Now, together, we'll help others. In that moment, under the golden sun, they looked like a father and daughter, and my heart felt at peace. Life sometimes rewards you in strange ways. I saw the reporters capturing that moment, the cameras focusing on Sarah's smile and Mikey's steps. A microphone came toward me. "Mrs. Davis, how does it feel to have the center named after you?" I wiped my tears, my voice cracking. This is my daughter's dream and mine. From pain, we learned that hope never dies. That night on TV, the headlines read, "From the ashes together they built hope," with a photo of us cutting the ribbon. I watched it with Sarah, hugging her. "See, sweetie? Now the papers are calling us heroes." She smiled. "We're not heroes, Mom, just people who don't give up." After the ceremony, as people started to leave with hugs and thanks, I went back to my little store. Some of the usual customers stopped by for bread and coffee, but now they didn't just buy things. They congratulated me enthusiastically. "Mrs. Davis, you're famous. You were in the paper today cutting the ribbon. We're so proud." Mrs. Lopez patted me on the shoulder. "Imagine from selling things in a little store to owning a center. We're so proud of you." The neighbors now looked at me with admiration. I was no longer poor Mrs. Davis, but the woman who defeated the Thompsons. I half smiled, feeling a humble warmth. "Thank you, but we were just lucky." They laughed and bought more candy for the kids. "Lucky? No way, you're so strong." That evening, as the sunset painted the street red, I pulled down the metal shutter of the store with its familiar creak, put on the padlock, and sat on the porch, listening to the wind blow through the bougainvillea. Many of the flowers had already fallen. The pink carpet on the ground was dry from the sun, but new buds were blooming, tiny blossoms opening under the new moon. I took a deep breath, feeling an immense peace, thinking about the long road we had traveled. Now it all felt like a good dream. That night, for the first time in months of struggle and pain, I slept peacefully on my old simple cot, without nightmares, without waking up in the middle of the night to a choked sob. My heart felt light, as if a weight had been lifted. My breathing was steady, and in my dream, I saw Sarah walking confidently beside the patients, James smiling, and my mother, the one who gave me the pearl necklace, whispering to me, "You did so well, my child." Tomorrow, the store would open again, but now I knew that our lives had changed forever. Not to become rich, but to be people who give hope to others. And that was the greatest reward. After everything we went through, I realized something very clearly. Our greatest strength isn't in money or status, but in love and perseverance. A sweet promise can be betrayed. Cruel conspiracies can knock us down. But as long as we get back up, as long as we dare to face the truth, the wicked will never win. I want to tell everyone, never let yourselves or your children believe you are worth less because you are poor. Justice only comes when we dare to raise our voices, to protect each other and to fight against injustice. The story you have just heard has been modified in names and places to protect the identity of the people involved. We don't tell this to judge, but in the hope that someone will listen and stop to reflect. How many mothers are suffering in silence within their own homes? I truly wonder, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you dare to face it all to reclaim your voice? I want to know your opinion, because every story is like a candle that can light someone else's way. God always blesses, and I'm convinced that courage leads us to better days. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I'm leaving you two of the channel's most beloved stories. I'm sure they will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.